This is Qtv News. I am Umudu Gajaga. Thank you for joining us. On tonight's news, first, the local, international and sports news headlines. The Ministry of Finance announces new prices for petrol, diesel and kerosene to take effect from October 1st. President Barrow announces the appointment of Bakari Baji as the new Minister of Youth and Sports. There is a warning from the Health Minister for those intending to attend gamos outside the country. The new British High Commissioner to the Gambia, David Belgrove, has presented his letters of credence to President Barrow at State House. This month marks 18 years since a Senegalese passenger ferry called MV Lejola was involved in one of the deadliest maritime disasters of the Gambia coast, leaving many people dead. In international news, after weeks of preparatory soundbites and babs, President Trump and the Democratic challenger Joe Biden faced off on Tuesday in the first of 3 presidential debates before the election on November 3rd. Botswana Day is a 2-day celebration that begins on 30th September and has been held each year since the country's declaration of independence from the United Kingdom in 1966. In sports, Africa Youth Games gold medalist Suleiman Toure has returned to athletics after almost 2 years sabbatical due to a back injury and financial constraints. Those were the main news headlines, and now the news in detail. Welcome and thank you for joining us. This is QTV News. First, we begin with a press release. In a press release issued today, the Ministry of Finance has announced that from tomorrow, 1st October, consumers can expect to pay the following. Petrol will now sell at $43.76 bututes, a reduction of 29 bututes. Diesel will sell at $41.70 bututes, a reduction of $2.35 bututes, and kerosene will now sell at $31.53 bututes, a reduction of $1.86 bututes. Press release from the State House announces that President Adama Barrow has decided to relieve 2 cabinet ministers of their appointments, namely Mr. Hadrami Sidibe of the Minister of Youth and Sports and also Mr. Lamin Job, Minister of Trade, Regional Integration and Employment, with effect from Wednesday, 30th September 2020. Both will be reassigned to the Foreign Service. The release also states that the President has appointed Mr. Bakari Baji as Minister of Youth and Sports with effect from Thursday, the 1st of October 2020. The Minister of Health, Dr. Amadou Lamin Samate, earlier today warned that people intending to attend gamos outside the country are required to produce a negative COVID-19 test result of not more than 72 hours when returning, or they will be quarantined at their own cost. The Health Minister also said that despite the lifting of some of the measures of the COVID-19 restrictions, the public health dangerous emergency regulations are still in place, and thus people should continue to adhere to the rules. More in this excerpt.
The general public is being reminded that those intending to attend gamos outside the Gambia should acquire a negative COVID-19 test certificate not more than 72 hours before leaving the country. Upon their return to the Gambia, they will be expected to come back with a new COVID-19 test result done within 72 hours from the country they are coming. If not, they will be quarantined and they'll be responsible for the cost of their quarantine whilst their samples are taken to be tested. Despite some improvement on the national figures, the public should remain vigilant. Even though there is no longer a state of public emergency, the public is hereby reminded that the public health dangerous diseases regulations still remain in place. As such, all non-essential public places remain temporarily closed, and the prohibition on public gatherings remains in place. The general public is reminded that wearing the face mask is still mandatory in public places and it is life-saving. Face masks are necessary to protect each and every one of us and should be worn properly over both the mouth and the nose.
The new British High Commissioner to the Gambia, David Belgrove, promises to support the country's post-COVID-19 economic recovery process, among other critical areas, as he presents his letters of credence to President Barrow on Wednesday at his State House in Banjul. And Alusise has more.
David Belgrove replaces Ambassador Sharon Waddell, whose diplomatic assignment in the country ended in June. Well, Belgrove has been the UK's ambassador in Liberia before coming to the Gambia. And in an interview with the press, he expressed his desire to foster relations between the Gambia and UK.
Well, first of all, I'd like to say what an honour it is to be appointed the British High Commissioner to the Gambia. And what an honour it has been to meet with the President just now. The Gambia and the UK have a long history and a long history of friendship, and that's something that I want to build upon. And it has been a privilege today to talk about our future relations with the Gambia.
What was the centre of discussion with the President?
Well, first of all, I congratulated the President on the democratic reforms that the Gambia has made to date, and how we wish to work with the Gambia as friends to build on those reforms. In addition, we want to continue and build on the work that we do in a number of areas, including democracy, human rights, security sector reform, health, education, all of those things we want to continue to build on. But also, I said to the President, I want to help with the economic recovery, particularly after the COVID situation, and attract more investment from the UK into the Gambia. And also, we're working on our defence relationship and hope to do more work, training and mentoring and building capacity within the Gambian Armed Forces.
This month marks 18 years since a Senegalese passenger ferry called MV Lejola was involved in one of the deadliest maritime disasters off the Gambia coast, leading to the death of nearly 2,000 people, with only 64 survivors. The incident happened on the 26th of September in 2002, while the ferry was en route to Dakar from Ziguinchor in Senegal's southern Senegalese region of Casamance. QTV's Mamadou Lamin Choi reports on this tragic incident and its connection to the Gambia.
It remains Africa's greatest shipwreck and the world's second worst non-military maritime disaster. The ferry had been out of service for 1 year for maintenance, and 2 weeks after resuming business would mark what would become one of maritime history's most tragic incidents. The Lejola ferry was designed to carry a maximum of 536 passengers and was believed to have been overloaded with an estimated number of 1,866, including men, women, children, and a ferry crew of at least 11 nationalities. At around noon on September 26, 2002, the Lejola set sail on one of its frequent trips between southern Senegal and Dakar. The journey was going smoothly until a few hours later, when it sailed into stormy, rough seas and winds at 35 kilometers off the Gambia's coast. Disaster struck the Lejola at 11 p.m. as it was unable to survive the weather. It capsized, throwing passengers and cargo into the sea, all within 5 minutes. By the time the Senegal's government launched rescue operations on the following morning, it was already too late for most of those on board, the majority of whom were its citizens. However, local fishermen had rescued some of the 64 survivors, of which one pregnant woman survived. In the days following the incident, over 100 dead bodies were stopped on the Gambian coast. Today, Gambia hosts one of the 4 specially constructed cemeteries in the Senegambia region, where some of the disaster victims were buried in about 6 or 7 mass graves. The cemetery is located between Tobakuta and Basuri in the West Coast region. My crew is being ushered to the cemetery by the Tobakuta village head and his family, who claim that the land for the cemetery was allocated by his father. Saja Sonko is one of the young local men who participated in the burial of the victims from the Lejola shipwreck.
The remains in different conditions. For the first day, the corpses were normal corpses. On that day, we dug 2 mass graveyards. and it was total to it's long time, but approximately 73 bodies were buried for the first day. So, but the subsequent days, we have some parts, maybe the abdomen, the head, the legs. Those are the types of parts that we receive for the other 3 or 4 mass graveyards.
Senegal's southern region is one of the country's most significant areas for agriculture. For long, the river had been the major means of transport, linking people from the northern and southern parts of Senegal. To ease mobility between these regions, the Senegalese government bought the La Jola ferry in 1990 to serve the country.
The sinking of the ship also, I think, reminds us of the importance and the timeliness of the Senegambia Bridge, which was inaugurated in January 2019. Because a very, very important, if not perennial problem for Senegal has been how to link the south with the north, how to link Dakar with the south. And there is a lot of movement, of passengers, of goods, and it has been a perennial problem.
For the Gambia, there are lessons to learn from this incident. Maritime disasters are not uncommon in the country's history. At least 7 slave ships have been reported to have been swallowed in our waters, with heavy loss of lives from the 18th and 19th centuries.
The historical lesson to learn is that the river and our territorial waters are the backbone of our economy, and so safety should be given priority always.
The River Gambia is one of the most navigable rivers in West Africa, but only when our country takes maritime safety seriously, disasters on our waters can be averted. The causes of the La Jola shipwreck must be a source of lessons for our country, which has ferries that transport us from one part of the country to another, and where overcrowding is common. Mohamed Lamin Choi, Qtv News.
We will go for a short break, and when we come back, the news continues with more local news stories. Do stay tuned. A differently able woman who made an emotional appeal on social media asking for help with mobility has been presented with a new wheelchair by Hope Through Clothes, a charitable organization in Canada, through Khadija Foundation in the Gambia. Babukar Sise has more.
The way I walk is very painful, and insects bite me when I'm crawling. I need a wheelchair and a small business because I finished school, but now I'm not doing anything.
This was the emotional plea by Mariama Sonko that went viral on social media a few months ago, prompting Hope Through Clothes to present a wheelchair to Miss Sonko. The vice chairman of Khadija Foundation, Mohammed F. Jabi, explains how it all started.
Few months ago, we sent the images of Mariama crawling on the ground, and that was very shocking, and they thought it very fitting there is a need to help Mariama. Today we are met here to make a presentation of these 7 bales of second-hand clothing, and also a brand new one wheelchair for Mariama. We would like to thank the people, particularly Hope Through Clothes, through Khadija Foundation in Canada, for the good work they are doing.
Receiving the wheelchair at her home in Sami Esau, Mariama's mother, Bintam Bai, had this to say to all those who helped her daughter.
I'm just praying for God first, and thanks the donor and the rest of you who have left everything, your problems and everything behind to come and present this wheelchair to my daughter Mariama.
Grateful, Mariama is full of praise for the donors.
I'm very happy this wheelchair to give it to me. May God bless you. What you want, may God bless you. Thank you very much.
Hope Through Clothes, in collaboration with Road to Zero Waste in Canada, True Khadija Foundation in the Gambia also presented 400 prayer carpets to 30 mosques across the country, 127 bales of used clothing, several boxes of the Holy Quran, a consignment of food items among other valuables to the underprivileged in communities. The presentation was held at Brufut Upper and Senior Secondary School and at Kerewan Sitokoto in Nyanija district.
We came from Bani to attend this presentation, and God willing, we have received our share. We would like to thank Hope True Clothes and Road to Zero Waste in Canada, True Khadija Foundation.
Sheikh Cham is a representative from Bruceby Phase 2 Mosque. These carpets came at the right time because during the last rainfall, the water got into our mosque and the carpets got wet. I got a call last night to come and receive carpets, so I would like to thank the donors. In Nyanija, the Imam of Kerewan Sitokoto, Alkali Jete, says everything is possible with God. It is God who gives to mankind, and we should thank Him always. Let's pray for more blessings because God has a big store full of things He did not need. It is there for us. For Mariama Sonko, though, all her problems are still not yet solved, but for now, she is enjoying a ride in her newfound happiness. Babakar Sise, QTV News.
We will take another short break and we continue with international and sports news when we return. Welcome back. And now to international news. After weeks of preparatory sound bites and barbs, more in keeping with trash talking of heavyweight boxers, President Donald Trump and the Democratic challenger Joe Biden faced off on Tuesday in the first of 3 presidential debates before the election on November 3rd. And if this is anything to go by, the forthcoming sessions should be ablaze with fireworks. Mamadou Mbodj has this interesting story.
Chris Wallace, the moderator of the debate for much of the time, looked like a man trying to stop a runaway train with his bare hands, according to one report. From the onset, the substantive details were largely lost amid President Trump's hectoring interjections and interruptions, which turned the debate into what has been described as a 90-minute mud wrestling. President Trump has form in this regard, having successfully employed the tactic against Hillary Clinton during the previous election debates. The two men repeatedly spoke over each other, and the moderator struggled to rein in or even get them to properly debate, which has left many observers wondering what, if any, the voters got from the exchange. The debate took place in Cleveland, Ohio, and because of the COVID-19 pandemic, the size of the audience in the debating hall was much reduced, and those who attended had to undergo COVID-19 testing and follow other public health protocols. The moderator of Fox News Sunday selected 6 topics: Trump and Biden's records, the Supreme Court, the COVID-19 pandemic, the economy, race and violence in U.S. cities, and the integrity of the election. What might possibly have been an interesting debate instead dissolved into what reporter described as a distressing and unwatchable spectacle. The candidates began talking about Supreme Court nominee Amy Coney Barrett, but the president repeatedly interrupted Biden, and when the moderator tried to intervene, the president repeatedly interrupted him. Biden appeared not to have been rattled, smiling as much as he could and calling Trump a liar. But when Trump kept speaking, Biden blurted out, "Will you shut up, man?" That was a productive segment, wasn't it? Biden still managed to make his top points, warning that Trump's court nominee threatens health care and attacking Trump's record on COVID-19. Trump just kept throwing out names, especially the term socialist, One reporter observed that Trump showed his strategy but didn't lay out much of a second term. On the economy, which has long been Trump's strong point with voters, the president consistently veered into unsubstantiated allegations against Biden's son Hunter, rather than focusing attention on his economic record. On their clash over race, Trump was reluctant to condemn the violence of white supremacists, but rather exhorted them to stand back and stand by, before going on to refuse to commit himself to a peaceful transfer of power should he lose the race. According to many analysts, the candidates split to type. Trump was loud, self-congratulatory, and willing to get into quarrels with anyone, including the moderator, which appealed to his core supporters. When the moderator asked why in 4 years Trump had failed to do anything to repeal Obamacare, when his election pledge had been to do so on day one in office, the president's reply to Wallace was, "I guess I'm debating you, but that's no surprise." Biden, on the other hand, was more soft-spoken, sometimes willing to let Trump talk over him and try to make policy arguments. Both men have a lot at stake, even though, according to some commentators, perhaps very few voters remain undecided. After all, these are men who provoke strong sentiments for or against them. Trump trails Biden in national and swing state polls, but there are 5 weeks before polling day, and a week, it has been said, is a long time in politics. The next debate is in Miami, Florida on 15th of October. The vice presidential debate between Vice President Mike Pence and Senator Kamala Harris is on Wednesday, 7th of October at the University of Utah. Based on these first exchanges, they are likely to be even more fiery given what is at stake. For QTV News, I am Mamadou Mbouch.
And now to Botswana. Botswana Day is a 2-day celebration that begins on September 30th and has been held each year since its declaration of independence from the United Kingdom in 1966. Loli M. Kamara reports.
Independence Day in Botswana is locally called Boipusho. The country, previously known as Bechuanaland, gained its independence in 1966 under the leadership of Seretse Khama, a barrister by profession, who was elected president by the National Assembly in 1966 and then re-elected for 2 additional terms, serving until his death in 1980. Shortly before his death, Seretse Khama played major roles in negotiating the end of the Rhodesian Civil War and the resulting creation and independence of Zimbabwe, and the creation of the Southern African Development Coordination Conference. Sir Seretse Khama was succeeded by Kwete Masire, who served as president for 17.5 years. Following Masire, Festus Mogae and Ian Khama, son of Sir Seretse, have each served 10 years in the presidency. On 1st April 2018, Mokwetsi Eric Kebetswe Masisi was sworn in as the 5th president of Botswana, succeeding Ian Khama. Botswana Day has been a day of pride for the people of the country. According to history, celebrations have been more subdued over the past few years. There is a push to bring back the large, lavish celebrations that occurred when the country first started celebrating their independence. In 1885, at the request of Botswana leader Khama III, Bethune and Sebele, the British government put the northern part of Botswana, known as Bechuanaland, under its protection. At the time, Tswana inhabitants were being attacked by advancing Dutch Boer settlers as well as tribes in the northeast. In 1910, when the Union of South Africa was formed, a tribal chief in Botswana believed it was not in the best interest of his people to join the Union. Britain retained control of the region, and when apartheid began in 1948, it became impossible for the region to join South Africa. After World War II, which weakened the country, Britain began reducing its colonies, and in 1964, the United Nations agreed to self-government in Botswana. The country was declared independent on September 30th, 1966. At the time of its independence, Botswana was ranked the world's third poorest country, poorer than most other African countries. Botswana has since transformed itself into an open middle-income country with one of the world's fastest growing economies. The economy is dominated by mining, cattle, and tourism. Botswana has a GDP purchasing power parity per capita of about $18,825 per year as of 2015, one of the highest in Africa. Its high gross national income, by some estimates the fourth largest in Africa, gives the country a relatively high standard of living and the highest Human Development Index of continental sub-Saharan Africa. Botswana is one of the only 3 nations in Africa since the end of colonial rule, joyed to have achieved a clean record of free and fair elections since independence. The country has held 10 elections since 1966 without any serious incident of corruption. The other countries are Cape Verde and Mauritius. For QTV News, Lolly M. Kamara.
Following reports that aid workers in the Democratic Republic of Congo have been involved in the sexual abuse and exploitation of women, the World Health Organization has vowed to robustly investigate the allegations. More in this report.
The WHO response follows a joint investigation by 2 news agencies in which 50 women made the allegations. Most of the abuses are said to have taken place in the hospitals, where local women were allegedly forced to have sex, with 2 women becoming pregnant after being plied with drinks. The abuses are alleged to have occurred between 2018 and March this year. Several other organizations, such as the New Humanitarian News Agency and the Thomson Reuters Foundation, have carried out an almost year-long investigation. In response, the World Health Organization vowed it will robustly investigate the allegations. It said in a statement that anyone identified as being involved will be held to account and face serious consequences, including immediate dismissal. Further stating that betrayal of the people in the communities they serve is disgraceful. The WHO, which led global efforts to curb the spread of the Ebola outbreak, in which more than 2,000 people died in the DR Congo, declared it over in June this year. However, with these allegations, the organization's reputation is now at stake. Following similar allegations against some of their staff in other countries, the UN and aid agencies have previously promised zero tolerance of sexual abuse. A spokesperson for the UK's Foreign, Commonwealth and Development Office said it would scrutinize the WHO findings closely, adding sexual exploitation and abuse are completely abhorrent. Most of the allegations of sexual abuse and exploitation were against men, including doctors, said to be from the WHO. Some of the accused men came from Belgium, Burkina Faso, Canada, France, Guinea-Conakry and Ivory Coast. Until now, the WHO has been criticized mainly by the US, but it has been comforted by support, both moral and financial, from many other countries. However, that support may now be shaken just at the moment the world needs a global public health body beyond reproach. Answane Sonyasi for Qtv News.
And now to sports news. African Youth Games gold medalist Suleiman Toure has returned to athletics after almost 2 years sabbatical due to a back injury and lacking the fares to attend regular training. More in this report. For almost 2 years, Suleiman Toure called it quits after a back and hamstring injury he suffered in competition hampered his athletics career. Marked out as destined for greatness as a junior athlete who represented the Gambia, he says even getting fare to attend regular training is a nightmare.
The reason why I quit because of my injury. I've been having injury since 2018, my African Youth Championship. I have been injuring. Since that I have been not having a treatment. So from there I go for Africa's under 20 games. Then I have this injury have been worse. So I decided to quit because I have no one to take care. It's not easy athletics in Gambia. So I decided to quit because I have no sponsor, no one to treat me.
Now there is a complete turnaround. Suleiman resumed training in the last few weeks thanks to support of his coach Ismail Amanga. But will he regain the form he had in 2018 at the Africa Youth Games in Algeria, where he won the gold medal in the 200 meters in a timing of 20.97 seconds?
It can be possible, and I am very sure that it will be possible because I am ready to work. As my coach Ismanga said that if I'm ready to work, he will help me out. Now I'm ready to work, and I know the training he is giving to me now is different program. I have not able to do this training before, but now things are changing. I'm learning a new thing every day, gradually.
Coach Ismaila Manga has been helping in the development of Suleiman for his recuperation, training and form. Despite his long absence from competition, his coach is confident Suleiman will reach his peak again.
There's a lot of things that he lacks, and I have to work more on that. That is the strength, the power, and the speed. It's a combination of all. We have to work everything intact together. That is when he is ready. And he's showing me that strength and he's showing me that willingness that he is ready to work hard and get back to his feet. And I can assure you that the zeal that you saw in the previous years, working with him, at least I can take him to another stage by the support of the Lord.
Athletes in the Gambia struggle for basic training materials, fair to training grounds, poor training facilities, even when they compete for the national team. These challenges have resulted in so many talent wastages due to inadequate funding and investment. Other smaller nations invest in their athletes and rightly reap the rewards. In some of these countries, corporate entities take over the cost associated with helping athletes realize their full potential. Mamudu Gajaga, QTV News. Before we end this bulletin of the news, let's have a quick look at our main news stories. President Barrow announces the appointment of Bakari Baji as the new sports minister and also Minister of Youth and Sports. The new British High Commissioner to the Gambia, David Belgrove, has presented his letters of credence to President Barrow at the State House. This month marks 18 years since a Senegalese passenger ferry called MV Lejola was involved in one of the deadliest maritime disasters off the Gambia coast, leaving many people dead. In international news, after weeks of preparatory soundbites and barbs, President Trump and the Democratic challenger Joe Biden faced off on Tuesday in the first of 3 presidential debates before the election on November 3rd. Botswana Day is a 2-day celebration that begins on September 30th and has been held in each year since its declaration of independence from the United Kingdom in 1966. And in sports news, Africa Youth Games gold medalist Suleiman Touré has returned to athletics after almost a 2-year sabbatical due to a back injury and financial constraints. That's all on tonight's news edition. Join us tomorrow for more news and have a pleasant night.